All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Central Mafia virtual webinar. I am by myself today. My co host, Sean Lardo, has other commitments, so it will just be me today, and we'll bring Brian to our presentation and be able to share all of his knowledge with us. So let's bring and I'll have to rely on my co-host on the back end there, Simon, to see if I can bring my presentation. There it is. Thank you so much. I don't know if I did that or Simon did it on the back end, but there you go. So welcome again to our monthly webinar for the Central Mafia. Happy to have everybody here. So as a reminder, this is a partner-led community. The Central Mafia, we want to bring all MSPs together to share their experiences, share their knowledge, learn from all of our partners and our sponsors, so we can grow and be better together and provide great services to our clients. So we're always open for you guys to make your suggestions. Where we always want to come up with content, with ideas as we are planning for these kind of webinars for all of our in-person events. We would like to hear from you because this is how we're going to grow this community. And as you see people that are coming in, just like, Brian's going to be talking to us, make sure that you connect with them, because even though at one point I always say, if it's not, if it's not the right contact at the time, it's somebody that you could definitely want to have within your virtual Rolodex and be able to reach out to them at any given point. The best way to do that is through our different channels. So we do have our Slack channel, in which you can, again, post all those different suggestions. If you have any questions for the community, that is the best way to do that. You go in there, there's all partners like myself, like you, and different sorts of experience. Put those out there, and the community is always, this MSP community is always willing to share. And if you want to stay up to date with all of our upcoming events, the LinkedIn page is the best way to see what we're up to. All these sessions are always recorded into our YouTube channel, so you can go back and review any of those and share with any other of your team members if you feel it's going to bring value to them. Just take them to the YouTube channel, have them subscribe to it, because we are actually going to post all these, and we also have a lot of offline content that we're going to be uploading here in the future. So it's the best way to do that, just to subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you'll be able to stay up to date. So brand new, my God, that is tiny. So brand new, we have a newsletter. So you're probably wondering, like, what happened to all those emails that Juan Mack used to send out? Well, the good thing is that our list has grown so much that I can no longer send those emails out. So we partner with Exemplify. Thank you for them to providing us the platform, and now we are going to be able to send out all those communications to you. And we are, we have it branded in there. We have this awesome newsletter that we're going to send out, and you're going to be able to see all of our updates. All the things that we've done in the past, updates from IT Nation or any other events. We learned from our vendors and all of our upcoming webinars as well. So that will be the best way for us to communicate with you and to all the user groups, across the U.S. So we're very excited about this. And again, thank you, Exemplify, for providing us with this platform and allowing us to grow the community and be able to send you and keep you informed with all the happenings. We have our, oh my goodness, I need to update my slide. So our monthly webinars for 2025 will still follow the same pattern. So they'll be always on the second Thursday of the month, and we're going to have then the open mic, which will be the following Thursday. So those are always going to be there for you. And then the second Thursday of January will be our next one, and then we'll have this one. For today, we're going to talk to Brian here in a little bit. We are very thankful to the CompTIA to providing us with a code so you can actually join the CompTIA community. So they here this code, or if you can scan this QR code, you get a free year of free year and be a member of the CompTIA community and take advantage of all their offerings, all of their different events. Geno has been very kind to us in providing us this, and this is in conjunction with the Central Mafia for you. So take advantage of that as well, and it's another opportunity to meet other individuals inside the MSP community, and you can just grow your connections and be better. So with that, wow, that was a lot of information in a very little amount of time. So with that, today we have Brian with us from vCIO ToolBox, and I'm very excited. We've been talking to Brian for a long time. I think since the beginning of the year, and actually I talked to Brian in the last CompTIA event back in July. And we can probably bring Brian because where he can validate that. Hey, Brian.
Hey, Juan, I was going to say, I think we even crossed paths at Pitch It down at IT Nation.
Yes.
A month and a half or so ago at this point. It's amazing. I think it's already been over a month since IT Nation.
And I remember CompTIA, I was like, I have you on the schedule, dude. And Brian's been very flexible too with us in trying to schedule this event. And we run into each other over at IT Nation and it's just like, Brian, we'd like to inform the community about, different topics. You can all be talking about the vCISO role and how you can grow that in this as a service. And it's pretty cool because actually this morning we had an internal meeting here and we were talking about that, like how can we turn something that we did internally, and it's like, hey, this is something that we can definitely replicate and do to our clients, and then how can we actually build that role and build that offering. And immediately when I was done, I went downstairs to my team members, like, you have to join the call today. We're actually talking about this because I feel that it's something a lot of MSPs are doing for their clients, even if they're not focusing on security services and that's not their core. Or as MSPs, we are providing certain level of protection, a certain level of security for our clients, and we need to make sure that we are meeting that expectation, right? And I think there's always a fine line in what are we responsible for as we're own part of their environment and keeping it secure, and what can we bring on top of that to say, hey, this is something that we can replicate now, and we can ensure that the client is protected and it can turn into an actual role, not necessarily one person, but some level of offering that we can help our clients. And I think it completely aligns with what you're talking today. So with that, Brian, thank you so much for being so flexible and be able to join us today. And I'm eager to hear more about it and see how we can definitely build this into our company.
No, that sounds great, Juan, and thank you so much for having me here. Just quickly for those that don't know me, my name is Brian Doyle. I am one of the co-founders here at vCIO ToolBox. vCIO ToolBox, very simply, is a unified account management and advisory platform that was built by an MSP for the MSPs. We have the ability in our platform. It came to market doing quarterly business reviews. That was really our first core product coming out. But we always had an eye on bringing compliance in when the MSP community finally reached that point as well, where they wanted to start introducing those topics. And today, my goal is really to help you see how you can potentially shape a vCISO as a service program for your organization, whether you're delivering that directly yourself or partnering with a security specialist who might be able to fill the gaps where you might not have them from a governance, risk, and compliance standpoint. So, kind of jumping in a little bit, let's just talk a little bit about why vCISO is coming to the forefront here and now. Obviously, there has been regulations that have been driving compliance for a lot of different industries for quite some time. All of us are obviously doing HIPAA paperwork when we go to our doctors. We expect our banks to protect our information and things like that. But what's driving a lot of the need for it today inside of the MSP environments is really around cyber insurability. Certainly, while many of you are working with those regulatory companies, they've been preparing for those audits for quite some time. But now with cyber insurability being a very hot topic, and more importantly, you hear a lot about high rates of cyber insurance and, trying to reduce some of those premiums down a little bit further. The real reality of what we're trying to protect against and where a vCISO program can really help your client is making sure that when something does happen, they're going to get paid. One of the problems that has been going on across the industry for the insurance side is a lot of rubber stamping those applications. And then when there is some sort of security incident, when the analysis and the forensics go on, it turns out things like MFA were not fully turned on for the entire environment. And now there's a chance to either reject that claim or carve out part of those claims. So where we're seeing a high level of adoption with our clients bringing vCISO services in is really to help out with reducing the chance of having cyber liability insurance claims rejected or carved out. Other things that are driving the need for vCISO programs is obviously making sure that identifiable information is protected. And for those of you that are working with the DoD sector, CMMC is the biggest word that's out on the streets today. And certainly we want to make sure that classified or unclassified information is being protected as well. So again, driving those actions are there. And then the final thing is really litigation too. When you start even looking at your relationships with your employees, you have to make sure their information is protected, but you've got the right policies and procedures in place to make sure that you've got a great workplace, right? That there's nothing that's going on at the computer levels, think acceptable use policies that are needed. So all these needs really drive the opportunity to bring the vCISO layer on top. And for those partners that we're working with that have been building security stacks for quite some time now, this is really adding what we call the governance layer to it. And the beautiful part about this is it's also opening up the opportunity to new recurring revenue. Now, the other challenge, though, is how do you get that line in the sand as an MSP where you can start charging for this service? Because in a lot of cases, your customer already thinks you're doing this for them, right? You're in charge of everything. As soon as they signed you on perceptionally, you're in charge of keeping things up, and you're perceptionally up for keeping them secure. This is a great way to help them understand their risks and really start driving from that risk perspective those projects that they've been leaving on the table with you and really look to get them done. So, that's kind of a big picture view why vCISO is becoming something that's really getting talked a lot more about in the industry and certainly opening up new doors for the MSP. So, I talked a little bit about this already, kind of with the key drivers, but definitely more companies are being held to compliance requirements. The MSP community just dodged a little bit of a bullet in the sense that CMMC is not requiring the MSP to be regulated at the same level as the companies that they're working with. But certainly downstream, we're handling data and we need to show that we're adhering to the same level of need as our customers that we're working with. I spoke a little bit about the complex requirements in cyber liability insurance companies. And remember, insurance companies' number one thing is not to pay out more than they need to. They're there as a stopgap, but they're not there to answer or to just write blank checks, right? So we need to make sure that we're meeting what they're asking for so we can get those policies being created. The other thing is customers have not looked at some of their policies they've created for their business since they probably built that first employee handbook, right? And we know that technology's evolved. AI is being used more and more through the organizations. Certainly there's more complexities in security. And if we don't bring some of those policies up to date and help our customers bring those policies up to date, they may find themselves, as it says at the bottom, in that litigation loophole again. Now, the question I hear most often when people are looking at me and saying, well, how do you even price vCISO? Let's just talk first about what does compliance cost our end users. So you'll see here we have a variety of frameworks. On the low end, just building a cybersecurity program rooted around CIS or CSF is the most economical. But when you start getting regulated like CMMC, HIPAA, or need SOC 2s, the numbers can get quite expensive for an organization to get in there. And the majority of that cost is spent on the readiness portion. And that's the part the MSP can really do. You'll hear out in the marketplace, rooster can't watch the hen house, right? We're not here looking to be that rooster watching the hen house. We're looking to walk arm in arm with our customers, help them prepare for the audits they need to contribute to, help them organize the information. So then when they pass it to the auditors, they're more likely to pass on the first pass or be able to show the evidence that they're doing the proper things and maintaining the proper controls. So if you just look at that first left quadrant, you'll see that the opportunity is there to generate $15,000 to $35,000, depending on the size and scope of your organization, building the readiness part. And you see that it accounts for about 65 to 70% of the overall audit costs a customer might face. And as you look around that spectrum, you'll see it's very similar. Now, an area that I'm seeing the MSPs really, that I work with, really taking hold and moving forward is their unregulated customers. These are the people that truly haven't looked at their policies in a long time. They don't have controls that they're working at today. And by implementing things like the CIS version 8.1 framework or the new NIST CSF 2.0, they can really help a customer just build a solid cybersecurity program to both benefit their business. But when you think about what a cybersecurity program can do from a marketing level for that company, now when they're bringing in and trying to attract new talent, they can talk about ways that they're protecting those people when they come on board, both from being in a hostile workplace and having their data slip out as well. They're showing their customers that they're taking steps to make sure any data they exchange and share in the process is being protected as well. So when you really look at the opportunity, and if we educate it and position it right with the customer, you're really talking about ways that they could potentially differentiate themselves from their partners by better protecting their data and their IP assets that they might be sharing out with their other customers. So, I hope this slide gives you a little bit of a sense of how things really are structured and cost out there. I want to shift gears now, though, into what does it take?
Hey, Brian, I do have a question. Can you go back to on that screen? You're talking about that is the cost and that our client, right, that the company will incur in just meeting any of these requirements, right? And we as the MSPs we can definitely help the organization on the readiness, because we're the technology experts, right? So we understand their security and we understand all these needs. So not only I feel like you're saying that it's not only getting them ready for this process, because I've been through through some of these readiness and some of these audits internally, and I think that's a twofold. One is the readiness, and when it comes to audit, and so when you have that audit process, that yearly audit process, you need to make sure that you are ready for that audit, that you have all those policies and procedures, that you'll be able to document and show evidence that all the things that you say you were going to do, you are doing those. And I think that's an opportunity in there as well, right? To have that for the client, and then also be ready for the audit, because nothing, it stresses you more than hearing the word audit. Now I'm going to have an audit and I have to have all these things ready. So I think it's not only, I feel like it's, helping the client achieve this is going to help them, be a better company within their marketplace, but also continue to do that. And also as things change, we can bring that value to our clients.
No, you're spot on, Juan. The reality is, the better we can prepare for the audit, the less back and forth that happens with the auditors coming back, right? But we need to be there to support the customer through the audit process too. They might not be able to answer some of those questions, and that's a role that we can play during that process as well. I want all of you to think a little bit about when you have those projects you go on and where the scope isn't clearly defined or the customer scope creeps, how much back and forth goes and how that can erode or eat into your margins or cause cause change orders that then, of course, bring more cost to the customer. And the same thing happens in the audit process. The better we can help the customer organize early, the better they're going to go for these audit process. But the problem is this, too many of them look at it as a once a year event. And what building a vCISO program really does is allows you to iterate on the process throughout the year, maintain that compliance. So now they're really operating at that compliant level 365 days a year and not getting through the audit going, and then going, okay, well, wait until we have to prep again to make any other changes. So this is really where the opportunities come in for the vCIO, for the MSP, to be a part of this is really, hey, you've got your tech stack of security tools. How do we lean on those and then bring them into the process side, which is really what they're looking for during the audit in most cases. And then the output of those tools, your reports, become the evidence that we need to support the process. So, so when you think about audit prep, it's really simple. It's making sure that we're doing the things that those compliance assessments are doing, but also preparing the evidence that has to be shared with the auditors to prove out that not only do we say we're doing it, but we're doing it and we're doing it in a measured way. So hopefully that kind of gives a little bit more insight to why those costs can start getting up that high, but also why building as much of that process into the front end that the MSP controls can reduce the costs at the auditor level. And quite frankly, the auditors want it to be easier. They have enough business to keep them moving. They don't have enough time to get the audits done most often, or usually when things aren't ready. All right. So now let's get it. We talked about key drivers already. I'm so sorry. But, I know what I'm doing wrong. I'm sorry. When you had me go the wrong way.
There we go. We're there.
But anyhow, now let's talk a little bit about the key objectives of the vCISO role. All MSPs really started broadening their security stacks, prior to, the COVID event, but certainly during the COVID event, it became even more of a concern to the community as we had people working remotely and new ways that we had to monitor, maintain security end to end. But the vCISO's job is really to work with the client's teams and make sure that we have the controls in place to really make sure that that security is being delivered appropriately. So the first step is working with them to decide what framework they're going to fall under. Now, if you're a regulated company, you're going to default to the framework that's required by the governing body that you have to report into. But as I mentioned earlier, more and more companies are looking to build cyber programs for the cyber insurability piece of it. And also for that, making sure they're maintaining their reputation and not losing data, that they now want to pick a best breed security framework. And what I've seen most often happening in the MSP space, as I alluded to earlier, is they're choosing either the CIS framework version 8.1 or they're choosing the NIST CSF 2.0 these days. One of the nice parts about the CIS framework is it breaks into 3 implementation groups, and each one of those groups is really speaking to a specific audience. So us as MSPs, usually CIS implementation group number 1 is going to be ideal for the majority of our clients. It's speaking to customers that are not targeted from a cybersecurity perspective, but certainly that automation that's out there can hack into their environments. They're using common off-the-shelf products. They have under 250 employees. And that framework is really speaking to the security controls you need to implement for that audience. Now, I am seeing a little bit of a transition now that NIST 2.0 came out, because CSF 2.0 has brought in that governance layer, that oversight piece that really wasn't being addressed in a lot of the frameworks in the past. So I'm seeing a little bit move to that. But in the CIS, there's 56 safeguards, they call them, at that implementation group number 1. In this CSF, we're really talking about, I think it's 106 controls in 2.0. So a little bit more of a burden to get through that assessment as well. The other thing we're trying to do in the vCISO role is identify risk. A lot of companies don't, they know their financial risk profile. They probably have a sense of operational risk, but that cybersecurity risk and that IT risk is a little bit of a mystery for them. So part of the vCISO role is developing a methodology where they can identify risk, see the impact to the business of a problem, see what the likelihood of that problem is occurring, and then communicating that out to a customer. We need to do security governance. That's that policy and procedure piece. and then identifying where the gaps are in the program and creating that plan of action. And the nice part of that plan of action is that's where projects are born. That's where other dollars outside of the recurring revenue you can potentially build comes back to your business in the form of projects. Now, when you look at those vCISO responsibilities, the biggest one is around people and policies. You've got to do an IT policy review. Most of these frameworks require you to keep a regular review of those policies, usually at least annually. And if you talk to many of your customers, especially those that are just tucking it into their handbooks, they have not looked at some of those policies in years, right? So we have to work with them to first analyze the policy they have. And as I said before, are they speaking to today's technologies? Are they taking into account AI, social media, other, remote workforces, things that have really, over the last 5 to 10 years become in vogue, but oftentimes aren't found in their acceptable use or policies. Many of those customers don't even have remote work from home policies existing. The other thing we're looking for is identifying gaps in the skill sets they have. Now, we know as MSPs, oftentimes we are supporting as the full IT department, but there are times we're working in co-managed situations and they're trying to address security with low-level desktop personnel or people that know systems or app developers, but don't really understand security. So it's our job to find those gaps and then find ways to fill them. And then the last thing is reviewing cybersecurity training and building incident communication programs. Most of the MSPs now, they're delivering security awareness training and they've put in phishing systems and they're running those tests. But who's actually looking at the results? Are we, how many people are actually completing their trainings? How many times have those emails been clicked and what corrective action are we taking with those users? And that oversight feeds into a vCISO program, and that's an area that we can take on. Similarly, when you talk about incident communication programs, I've been working with MSPs on the QBR side for years, and most of the time they say, oh yeah, we don't have any business continuity or disaster recovery process. Well, if we don't have incident response processes and even those that can adapt other things and test them, we're going to be defining that in a time of incident, and we're going to lose precious time, either, that we could have resolved an issue to continued working, defining the process. And this is going to continue to erode potentially financially, potentially reputationally for the organization. So we really have an opportunity here to build programs where we can guide those people, process, and policies. The second part is really in the MSP wheelhouse. Most of you have already done this, but it is a key part of building a vCISO program. And that's taking a look at the customer's architecture, determining if it has the right security tools in place. If it doesn't, bringing in those tools so that they can be covered. So again, usually for the MSP, that's the security stack you're delivering, and then evaluate each year if those tools are still doing what they need to do. And not written directly in this slide, but this is where those things like annual pen tests come into play. And those annual pen tests are definitely something that more and more of those cybersecurity insurance forms are starting to require as well. And then the final component really of the vCIO role is then doing the advisory services. And this is really the part that vCIO ToolBox helps organize and deliver for you through our Cybrance GRC platform. It's making sure that you're conducting that assessment, gathering all the evidence that you need to support those controls, and being able to present out that you're doing what you're doing with proof. It's making sure that you've got best practices for those gaps. And if you do see gaps in security or controls, putting them into your plan of action and milestones, that POAM you see there, and then dictating when those projects are going to get done with the customer. And this is where we get past selling security, because now we're looking at those security projects and saying to the customer, you've got a decision to make. Do you want to accept that risk? Project costs more than what you fear the exposure is going to be? Or do we agree that financially the exposure is bigger than the project cost by some magnitude of X, and that we should jump into it and get that project done? And that's really a big part of this. You become that trusted advisor, although I hate that term, but it's so overused, but you become that trusted advisor. And now instead of selling, you're guiding. And you're guiding with intelligence or, behind it that makes the customer in control of their decisions and makes them feel comfortable. And then ultimately we're delivering that future state plan. So here what I have is just a simple matrix that shows some of the services that you can put into it and the way you can potentially structure a bronze, silver, or gold approach to vCISO as a service. again, give this some thought. This is just kind of a high level view, but you'll see kind of in a base plan that you can give to your customer. You could do those annual assessments, maintain those assessments throughout the year, and help them deliver that plan of action. As you move a little further up the food chain, you're going to do an annual assessment of the security stack. You're going to start taking on some of that policy, either creation or maintenance challenges, or at least guide them where they might need to go with their legal teams. And then finally, if you go into the gold, you're going to start looking at managing human capital requirements. You might even be part of the hiring if they are co-managed with you, and training oversight there. And you're going to start attending some of their board meetings as well. And when you look at MRR opportunity, and your mileage will definitely vary on this, but these are coming through polls that we've done with our customers. If you're doing that base layer, you can expect to add another 1,000 or 2,000 on top of whatever you're charging, inclusive of your security stack, above what you're doing as an MSP today. And you'll see as you move up the ladder, that expands where you can be getting to 3 to 5. Now, this is representative of the traditional customer that's around 50 people, that traditional sweet spot for the MSP. Obviously, those numbers will move up or down the ladder depending on the complexity of your customers.
And Brian, when MSPs, like us, we as part of the offerings that we do, there's also always that vCIO role, right? That we're providing guidance, doing that road mapping, and even you and I talk to different MSPs on the different services that we offer. At one point, a lot of us were, we have our traditional, services for managed services, right?
Yep.
And then when security started, a lot of it started adding, and now we have a security service on top of that. I heard from a lot of people. It's like, what, since we're offering this should all be one single package, and you should include all your security services as part of your managed services. And then still have that vCIO role. At one point, do you introduce and you create that separation between the vCIO and the vCISO, and then start creating that in your company, and also offering that to your clients? What will be the transition into this model? That's
a great question, Juan. So, when I think about the vCIO side, right, and the standard quarterly business review, that being that trusted advisor in there and in support of the traditional managed service contract, which may or may not include your security stack, right?
Yeah.
When you think about that role, though, it's very much a reporting out role, right? So your vCIO is engaged with the customer. You're looking at what you support and the gaps that might be coming out of there that the customer hasn't executed on yet. And you're building that technology roadmap. And that technology roadmap may be inclusive of your existing agreements, new projects, and certainly, refresh schedules, right? So it's very, very much tied to day-to-day operations in day-to-day security metrics that we're doing for the customer. And absolutely, we should be reporting out on that. Where the shift really comes is when the customer starts being concerned about protecting their data, ensuring that they've got the right policies, that they can't be sued by their own employees for, things that people are doing on their computers that might create a hostile workplace, or adhering to any regulatory concerns that they have, as I mentioned throughout the presentation today. And where we make that transition is when they say we don't have the skill set to really put that governance layer on. You're going to hear more and more in the coming years of governance as a service kind of being used interchangeably with that compliance as a service. And that's really the layer we're talking about here. Now we're going beyond that day-to-day operational security report out, right, that we do commonly through our business review. But now we're looking at how the customer operates in areas that we don't touch, hand in hand with them, to make sure they're protected. And our expertise is then coming in and sharing with them, these are the policies you need to have, either for this regulation or just to do good business. Let's tailor them together. Let's make sure they're getting implemented. Let's make sure your team's reading it. Hey, you got my security awareness tool. Are you paying attention to what's happening in there? Are you doing anything? Now, more and more customers are starting to include that as part of their business review conversation, but it's almost like giving away the milk cow story, right? That whole thing. It really should be part of something that you're building out into a dollars and cents thing. So that transition is when you get that customer that's starting to be concerned about, hey, where's my exposure? And if you're not talking to the customer in risk terms, you're probably not going to get there, because it's always going to be perceived in that pure QBR as it's another project you're pitching to me in my roadmap. But when we start turning it to the risk side, hey, you have this gap. This is the impact it would be to your business: extended downtime, potentially financial loss, reputation risk, and the likelihood of it happening the way you are architected today. And usually these work on scales for impact and likelihood on a scale of 5. You're at 4. It can happen pretty easily in your environment. Now we're really talking to them about risk they're feeling. It's not that feeling of it might be I might get breached, or we could get breached. Now it's, hey, we have risk, and if we don't close it up, we've increased our likelihood to getting breached. So I don't know if that answers it completely for Juan, but that's definitely where I see the transition, is when you get those customers that care. And certainly anybody that's done an insurance form and wasn't confident when they finished signing it, they should do it. But by the way, I got to put this caveat out there: don't fill out their insurance forms. Get them the information through a framework and let them take it to the form, because you don't want to be any part of that liability chain.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. When you start, I think what I heard you say is when you start actually talking to the client about those risks, what's the risk exposure, and we're having those risk conversations, we can actually say, now we're talking in a new role, I'm putting a new hat on, because we're having those different conversations. They're going to have a financial impact on them. In early, we also talk about, compliance. We talk about all those compliance requirements. That's a different sort of conversation that we need to be having besides, what we're offering, like you're saying, that report out, that planning, that technical piece. But now it's just an additional layer.
And the other part is, this is a very sticky layer, right? Because now you're starting to deal with people beyond the technology stack inside your customer's business as well. You're dealing with their legal teams. This is stuff that their finance groups, their CFOs are worried about. So it really gives you an opportunity to expand the relationship a little bit as well.
Okay. What about for us, the MSP, like, to be ready for this, and like what are our gaps that we need to focus on in order for us to be able to service that and provide that to our clients?
So let's be very clear about the fact that there's 2 different approaches out there to deliver vCISOs today, very similar to anything else we do, right? Insource or outsource, right? And you have to look at your own team. If you don't have somebody that has some strong security competence, that understands policy, that has a business acumen as much as technology competence, then it's probably something that you're going to want to lean on and bring consultants in to do that. And, we have consultants that give you that capability of, they'll use vCIO ToolBox and our CyberAnt's GRC platform to deliver those services, so you can still use it for your QBRs, and all those roadmaps, strategic plans, and risk registers get centralized no matter how it's being approached, and they become an extension of your business. But if you're still at that stage where you're a little bit immature even on service delivery, and most of your people that are technical are true tacticians, then I would definitely look either to hire, if you really feel that you can get the traction to get ROI on it, or look for partners that can work with you, who have no competitive desire to bring on, take any of your IT solutions, and walk hand in hand with you in delivering this process, because there is a business acumen and a sense of security, maturity that you have to have in order to deliver it as well.
Awesome.
And, just here, I don't want to spend a lot of time here, but, for those that are saying, hey, what can vCIO ToolBox and the CyberAnt's GRC do for you? We have an AI-enhanced governance, risk, and compliance platform. And inside of it, we've got over 30 different frameworks. We just released our advanced policy manager, where you can craft policies with their team, send it out for workflow approval, and then ultimately signature distribution as well, and track progress. We manage all the evidence coming in, make it really easy for auditors to do it. Some of that comes in automated through integration. Some of it is the manual evidence you provide. And then we're delivering detailed plans of action and milestones. And one of the things I really didn't share too is a lot of my customers that are building that governance as a service, program, are also integrating third-party risk management into it as well. They're maintaining, the SOC 2s and those things for their global vendors. And then they're doing those due diligence surveys that the majority of you, I'm sure, have received on the other side as a service provider, and really assessing that risk, identifying risk scores they can share with their customers, and then sending out remediation plans to the vendors on behalf of the customer as well, to really make sure those vendors operate in the least risky way for those clients. In terms of how you can get in hold of me, certainly you can book a demo with us. You can email me, but in the center of the page there, you'll see that we have, get our vCISO program guide. We've developed a guide that basically goes a little bit further than what we had today to really show you what a governance as a service or what a vCISO as a service program should be doing tactically, and what you need to do as from key deliverables for your customer. And I think that document's going to help guide you to that. Should I insource it or outsource it, or do I want to build to that insource and start with outsource question?
And I think, Brian, when you talk about, when you talk about the vCIO, toolbox, and to help our clients preparing to have all these conversations, you do have all those capabilities to build those right into those conversations. And, and I feel like if you're not ready for, to make that transition into the vCIO, vCISO role, you can still use that as, as a step into building and start having, those conversations with the client, and then that planning on, hey, you should probably start considering on policies and procedures. What about, your disaster recovery plan? All those different things that will be add-ons. I think that you can definitely be built into that platform, make that conversation easier with the client as well.
Yeah, the beautiful part is you could be asking those questions as part of your standard business reviews with your customer and kind of gauge, is there interest, just off of helping them also understand there's gaps, right? We set out with our platform to really consolidate two tools that are often managed with two different teams, and ensuring that all that information came into one centralized place. But more importantly, when roadmaps were being presented to the customer from two different teams, it was always unified. It was always showing the same data and the same timeline, so there's no confusion on what needs to be done as well.
Yeah.
And of course, we reduce some stack cost for you that way too.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for sharing your email there, Brian, your information. And I saw that on the bottom, your LinkedIn information. It was always been, we've been scrolling that. So I know Brian, he's always willing to help, be very open, flexible to work with to everybody. So
we believe very much in being thought leaders too. We run a podcast called MSP Business School, which is really just talking about all the business side of being an MSP. And these are the labors of love I love to do that have nothing to do with my product, but allow me to stay engaged with the community and share some of the things that we've experienced, and bring in people that can share their experiences too, and really hopefully help other MSPs learn from them as well. So, we feel we need to be part of that fabric of the community more than anything else.
Yeah. Awesome. You know what? We might have you back over here and we can just talk about that as well. And also, and bring all the people into you, and also into your community, because we just want everybody to grow. Trying to see, I did not see any questions posted on the chat. So we don't have any questions here for the community. But what are you gonna say?
I said quiet group today. Hopefully everybody got what they needed from me. Thank you so much.
The nice thing is, as a reminder, this was recorded. This will be shared again with the community. So at any point, your contact information is there. So if you ever need have any questions about the tools, all the things that Brian is to interest, reach out to him. So thank you, Brian, really for joining us today. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time out of your day to learn a little bit more and put this this new thought in your head. It's like, how can I transition as we are offering all of these things to your clients already? There's always those new opportunities to grow as an MSP, to keep our clients secured, and then to provide all those additional services and all those potentials with our clients as well. So again, thank you, Brian, for today and for your time, and everybody else. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate it as
Anything
well.
else? Do-do-do-do.